What happens when Issei's heart is betrayed by those he loved? How would he survive after the heartache? Will he go rogue, or will he advance even greater in heights not seen? Chapter 1. This is an entirely original story with a twist. I do not own any rights to High School DxD, but I will use the characters and most of the storyline. It will have a harem, but wait and find out who I was inspired by a few stories that I came across, so I want to respect the authors of those stories. Enjoy smiley face. Thinking, talking, inner voice. Diedrich, Chapter 1. Wounded Heart. Issei, who am I to you? Asked Rias with concern. What do you mean? You're the president, and Issei said till he got cut off. Baka! Shouted Rias as she slapped him hard enough to push him away. Issei put his hand on his cheek in shock, then the other members of the orc started to insult him in the process. Issei, you're such a fool! Shouted Akeno, snapping at him. You're terrible, Issei. How could you, Asia, say, joining in? Seriously, do we have to spell it out for you? Geez, says Kiba while putting his hand on his face. You're such a baka, Issei. I'm dense, but this takes the cake, Zenobia said, chipping in the insult. You're the worst, Kaneko says with a disappointed look. I can't believe you. How can you be so blind, says Irina while wiggling her finger in a no way. Issei is stunned, and just a lot of everyone is confused. So far only people that have not belittled him are Revel, Rosweiss, and Gasper. Gasper, do you hate me too? Asked Issei with a confused face. Sorry, senpai, you have done a horrible thing, said Gasper, but not as harshly as the others. But why? Asked Issei, still confused. Issei decided to use his bilingual skills mind to see if he could understand and hoped to clear things up, but all he could hear was hate, and worst was from Rias. You absolute fool. Akino's inner voice, you clueless moron. Irina's inner voice. And people said I was dumb? Zenovia's inner voice, what is wrong with you? Asia's inner voice. Pervert. Kaneko's inner voice, what just happened? Revel's inner voice. Let him finish, Rias. Rosweiss's inner voice, you're such a bastard. Arg. Ria's inner voice. Are you serious right now? Damn it. I regret even reincarnating you. I should have let Raymer kill you twice. Riser sounds like a better backup lover. I regret breaking the marriage to him, Rias shouted in anger. The room was silenced, and everyone looked shocked, with wide eyes and mouths agape. Issei looked at Rias with a blank expression. He then shed a tear and figured out what she meant by letting Rayner kill him. Rias saw this and realized what she had just said. Oh no, Issei, said Rias but got cut off by Issei. No, it's okay. Don't apologize, Issei said as he sighed. Issei, I didn't mean it, Rias says while trying to correct what she said. No, you did, you all did, apart from Revel and Rosweiss, Issei said as he gestured to them. I'm glad you were all honest with me. You let me die, which means you would have let Asia die when you could have saved us. With your power, it would have been so easy. You reincarnated me to teach Riser a lesson, and I did it. Now that he's a better person and you're free. What do you need me for? I'm just a pawn, a tool, a slave, after all. You used me 'cause I have the boosted gear, and you're a devil, Issei said as he sighed, and tears came down his face. Right now, Issei was barely managing to keep his breathing stable. His body felt cold to him, and each word he spoke made his voice tremble. His face expressed every negative emotion, meaning hate, disdain, fear, anxiety, etc. That's not what Akeno tries to say but is cut off by Issei. I'll see you guys at the rating game. I promised Sarork a good fight. Take care, guys, master, Issei says as he starts to walk out of the door. Rias, you let him die. Rosweiss' inner voice, what the Revel's inner voice. As Issei approaches the door, Rias grabs his hand to try to talk to him, but his gauntlet appears. Let go, Gremory. You'll only make it worse, Diedrich said with an angry tone. Issei, please listen, Rias said. Issei lets out a powerful aura that symbolizes the rage he's feeling, and he looks at her and the others, except for Rosweiss and Revel, with so much hate. Let me go, Gremory, roared Issei. Rias let go of him and backed off. He called her by her last name. He had never done that to her. Issei stopped releasing his bloodlust-filled aura. Don't you dare, Rias! Rosweiss shouted with such an angry tone. Rias and everyone froze as Rosweiss had never raised her voice like that before. I feel like this is my fault, Ravel said, looking upset and with head down. This is our problem. We can only expect you to do some things, but we appreciate the offer. I'm sorry to ask this, but please go home for now. I need to find Issei. Very well, I hope Issei is all right, Ravel says with a worried look. I doubt it, Rosweiss said with a sad look. Ravel teleports home through the magic circle, and then Rosweiss looks at all of them with pure rage. Now, start talking, Rosweiss screamed out. Everyone in the room was frightened by the sudden change of Rosweiss. You guys let Issei die? And would have let Asia die? Rosweiss said with a scornful look. I. Rias stuttering, speak up, Rosweiss shouted. Okay, yes, I let him die, he told us to help save Asia, and we did, but not fast enough to do it when she was still human. Rias shouted with tears going down her face. You said that you should have let Rainier kill him twice. Does that mean you knew he was a target? Also, that Asia was a target? Rosweiss said as she raised her voice at the end. Rias was left with her mouth open, nothing coming out. That silence could only mean yes, you knew that the Fallen were after them, but you let them die so you could use them to get out of a marriage. I did my research. Rias was left stunned. Rosweiss looked at everyone else. Asia was crying as she glared at Rias, but some anger was directed towards herself. You knew this the whole time, Rias. He risked life and limb for you and us, and this is how we repay him, Asia said while the tears went down her face. Did the rest of you know about her plans as well? Rosweiss asked now with a questionable look. Kaneko, Kiba, and Akeno looked away in shame and showed their guilt. No, I was sealed away, Gasper said while in his box. What? Why? Rosweiss asked with a curious look. I couldn't control my powers, Gasper said, looking down in shame. Rosweiss looked at Rias. So, instead of helping him, you sealed him away. Wow, I can't believe you right now, Rosweiss says while disappointed. Is it so hard for him to say my name and say he loves me? Rias shouted, trying to change the subject. Stop changing the subject. You didn't let him finish. I could tell him he's in love with you. With that, Rosweiss leaves the orc to look for Issei. What have we done? Irina says while trying to hold her tears back. I was cruel to him, Gasper said, now crying in his box. Rias started to sob uncontrollably. Kaneko stopped eating her sweets and had a shadow over her eyes. Kiba's hands were shaking, Akeno sat motionlessly, and Zenobia held her head. Asia ran out the door, looking for him. We messed up, big time, Irina says while sniffing. Outside, Rosweiss was running out of the school's main gate and saw Issei walking in the distance. She managed to catch up to him within seconds. Issei, wait up, shouted Rosweiss in desperation. Issei didn't respond and kept walking until Rosweiss grabbed him by his hand, and he stopped, but he never faced her. Please, let go, I need to be alone, said Issei, sniffing and trying to hold in his tears. No, Issei, we need to talk about it, Rosweiss said, hoping he would come around. What's there to talk about? You heard her, I'm just a pervert that shouldn't be alive. Issei explained while still sniffling, breaking her grip on his hand and carrying on walking. Issei, please talk to me, Rosweiss pleaded. I'm sorry, but I have nothing to say to anyone. I'm going to go. I have a lot to think about, so I'll see you at school tomorrow, Sensei, Issei said and was going from view. Rosweiss just watched him disappear, knew not to pursue it any further, and thought he needed to heal right and not by force. She turned around, headed back to school, and bumped into Asia on the way back. Where is he? Asked Asia with tears coming down her face. He needs to be alone. Let's leave him be, Rosweiss said with a worried tone. But I need to apologize to him, Asia said and sniffed when she said it. I know that, but it won't heal the damage done. Come back to the clubroom. We all need to talk, Rosweiss said now with a tone of determination to get to the bottom of this. Rosweiss and Asia made their way back to the orc while Asia wept the whole time only to find out she was left to die only to be used, and the only one in the same boat was her savior, and she hurt him. Rosweiss took her inside and left her in the orc. She then called Azazel, but it went straight to voicemail. She thought he might be carefree, but he was also very caring, especially to his students, and more caring to Issei, who is unique. "Hey Azazel, it's me. We have a serious situation here, it's Issei. He's just Sem. You can help him right now," Rosweiss says, leaving the message on his phone. Issei POV. After leaving Rosweiss and others behind, he got inside his home, dropped his school bag in his room, and changed into his training clothes, a vest and shorts made from durable material. He went to the underground training field and just started training to vent his frustrations. "Balance breaker. Promotion to Rook," shouted Issei. "Welsh Dragon boosted gear scale male. Welsh Dragonic Rook solid impact," Diedrich responded from his boosted gear. Many targets appeared, and Issei started to punch them. He needed strength and power against Saorg. He kept hitting and boosting, but he felt as if each punch he threw was weaker than the last. "Come on, what's wrong with me?" Issei asked himself. "Issei, you know why," Diedrich said with a sad tone. Issei just stood there stumped, knowing why. "You need to let out your frustrations, partner, you're angry. Stop holding it in," Diedrich said as he was angry with the Crimson Princess as well. Suddenly, Issei's balance breaker armor disappeared, and he fell to his knees. He looked at the somewhat broken target dummies and started to cry, and he tried to hold back the tears. "Real men don't cry. Don't be a bitch, don't be weak," Issei said, trying to force himself to stop crying. But it was of no use, and he broke down more and more each time he tried to calm himself within mere seconds. Only his loud cries could be heard. He punched the ground, and each punch created cracks since he was in his Rook promotion still. His knuckles were bloody, mixed with tears flowing from his eyes. "After all I went through, Rogue Fallen, Freed, Kokabiel, Riser, Valley, Diodora, Loki, Juggernaut Drive, Cao Cao, Chaos Brigade, and for what?" Issei screamed at the top of his voice. As Diedrich was thinking, sniff, "One tiny mistake and suddenly I'm the worst being to exist," Issei said, still sniffing with tears coming down his face. "It's not your fault," Diedrich said, trying to calm his partner down. "Then why does it feel like it is, Diedrich? If I weren't such a pervert, things would have been different. Maybe I never would have been killed by that light spear. Maybe I would have awakened you earlier and been strong enough to save Asia, not use the Juggernaut Drive or anyone else," Issei said, wiping his tears away. "Issei, it also made you the strongest Red Dragon Emperor," Diedrich said, trying to cheer his partner up. "At what cost, Diedrich? My perversion damages your reputation and your psyche, for fuck's sake. I must be the worst to be able to do that to a dragon," Issei shouted in frustration. "I appreciate your concern, but right now, you need to worry about yourself." Diedrich said he was grateful that his partner was sorry for his actions. "I'm just so angry. I was being used this whole time. I was a puppet," Issei said with frustration. "Issei, I doubt that," Diedrich said. "How so?" Issei asked with confusion. "They do love you," Diedrich said. "Why did they let me die? If she needed help, she could have asked me and explained it to me. I would have helped. Knowing you, partner, you would I believe you would have," Diedrich said, knowing how kind his partner was. "All this is making me want a drink. Azazel thinks I don't know about his stash of booze in this house," Issei said as he got up and walked to a secret cabinet. "Issei, please don't, it won't help," Diedrich said, hoping he would stop. "Right now, anything might help to numb this pain," Issei said. As he opened up the compartment, he saw vodka, whiskey, scotch, and other alcohol. Luckily his parents weren't home. Just as he was about to pour himself a drink, he was stopped by Azazel. "Issei, please don't. I can't bear to see you go down that round," Azazel said as he suddenly appeared just in time. He saw Issei as a son but never once imagined him doing something like this. The unstoppable Red Dragon Emperor is now wholly broken. "Azazel?" Issei said, shocked at the sudden appearance. "Hey, kiddo," Azazel said before bringing Issei into a hug. Issei then suddenly cried into his shoulder. After some time, Issei stopped crying and sat in the corner of the room with Azazel sitting next to him. "Do you want to talk about it?" Azazel asked, knowing what caused this to happen. "Do you already know what happened?" Issei asked out of curiosity. "I do," Azazel said with a sad look. "I guess Rosweiss told you the story?" Issei asked. "Yeah, she did. She is apprehensive about you," Azazel said with concern. "I see. I can't believe Ravel saw what had happened, Issei said while looking down at his feet. That should be the least of your concern right now, kiddo, Azazel said, trying to help him. They let Asia and me die, and I nearly died several times willingly for them, Azazel. Am I such a fool? Issei asked with a down-spirited tone. Not at all. We were all fooled, we all thought that they were the kind-hearted people we knew. But today, their true colors were shown, Azazel said with a bit of anger mixed in. People. Devils through and through, Issei said, not all of them saw their mistakes and also saw that they didn't let you finish your confession. If you did confess, then. Azazel. I would have been in bliss. Despite not completely healing the emotional damage that Rainier caused, I was ready to move on. I gave my heart, body, and soul to her. Everything I did, and she said that she would rather go back to Riser, Issei said nonchalantly. Women are trouble, I got caught by their allure, and I fell, but you fell more than I did, Azazel said. I don't know what to do anymore. I lived and nearly died for the woman I fell in love with, and this is my penance. Nearly drinking alcohol and breaking apart at the very thought of her. Issei said with his hair covering his eyes while he looked down at his feet. Well, least I stopped you. You could have a hell of a hangover the next morning, ha ha ha, Azazel said, laughing at the end. It'll be nothing compared to the light spears or merging a part of the dividing gear, Fenrir puncturing my entire body with his fangs, or the worst I've suffered yet, this heartache, Issei said with a stoic look. Well, in only a few months, you went from being a pervy high school kid to fighting strays, fallen monsters, other sacred gear users, and even Loki, all while becoming the strongest Red Dragon Emperor, Azazel said with pride. I only survived Loki because of Ravel giving me a phoenix tear, Issei said with a slight smirk. Yeah, she's a caring girl, Azazel said, appreciating Ravel's actions for Issei. So far, Ravel, Rosweiss, and you seem to care about me, Issei said while still doubtful. So does Asia, Irina, Gasper, and the others, Azazel said, not knowing what others truly felt. On the contrary to recent events, Issei said, it's late, Issei, get some sleep. Hopefully, you can sleep it off, Azazel said as he got off the floor to help Issei. Issei slowly got up and managed to walk to get an empty bedroom weakly, and he got on the bed, he passed out in mere seconds. Azazel left a note on the side table for him to see once he woke up. I hope the sleep will calm you down a bit, I'll come to check on you in the morning, and we will think of a way to help you out. Maybe a break from the group or something. Once Azazel left the bedroom, he placed a few powerful spells and ruins on the door. Only he and a select few can enter the room, and if any unwanted people try to enter, he'll know when Issei leaves or anything he'll understand. He is pissed that he was hurt this much in mere seconds. Issei's mindscape. As soon as Issei collapsed onto the bed, Diedrich brought him into his mindscape to comfort him in whatever way he could. He flew down and gave him a big hug. Issei. You know I am always here for you. Unlike my past hosts, you are the only one that treats me as a friend and not a tool, Diedrich said as he carried on hugging him. Thanks, Diedrich, you're one of my best friends. If I were a dragon, I wouldn't call my brother, Issei said as he replicated the hug. Hee hee, now that would be interesting. So have you got a plan on how to beat Sarorg, or have plans changed? Diedrich asked Issei. Nope, I still want to beat him as I did promise him a good fight, so I was thinking maybe see if Azazel or Searsex be able to find somewhere for me to train without distractions, Issei said with a little bit of venom at the end. That'd be good, so what are you thinking training in your other gear forms are? Diedrich asked. No, I'm going to focus on the base to strengthen the balance breaker. Plus, I am done being a pervert, as it's been used against me so many times, Issei said with determination. What you done with my Issei? He never would give up his pervertedness, Diedrich said while looking shocked. Haha, very funny, Diedrich. I am still going to be a pervert that never changes, but I am going to tone it down a bit and also control it, so no more pervert moves from me, Issei said while smiling after giggling a bit. Wow, this is a change, so if you are going to train on your base form, some of the past users might be able to help you out since you saved them, Diedrich said with pride. That'd be awesome if they could help, but in the meantime, I feel sleepy, so I am going to get some sleep. Talk to you in the morning, Diedrich, Issei said, smiling and then closing his eyes to fall asleep. Night partner, Diedrich said as he went to sleep as well. Meanwhile, the orc group Rias and the other members of the orc were looking for Issei and checking each room to find him. They finally stumbled upon the room where Azazel put a barrier, and the group felt a blockage that prevented them from going to it. Guys, why is there a barrier in this room?" Irina asked while looking puzzled at the others. "That's one of the many spare bedrooms. Do you think Issei is in there?" Asia asked, hoping he was. "I'm cutting the door down. Stand back," shouted Zenobia. "Zenobia, wait!" shouted Rosweiss. Before she could stop, Zenobia had already summoned Durandal, who was above her and was ready to cut the barrier along the door. The instant she swung her blade, a hand grabbed her arms and stopped her mid-swing. Everyone looked towards the figure that stood tall, dark, and pissed off, and it was Azazel. "Don't you fucking dare! None of you is to go near him, talk to him, or anything," shouted Azazel, showing he was serious. "What the hell, Azazel? He's my pawn, and I do what I like as his king," Rias said while holding her hips. "Is that all he is to you? Not the man who risked everything to save not just you but everyone else here as well? Do I have to remind you of what every one of you said to him except for Rosweiss, who tried to help him after what you all done?" Azazel said, holding his ground. With that, everyone's face went to the ground in shame except for Rosweiss. "You didn't even let him finish confessing, and look where your stupidity got him. As of this moment onwards, I'll be looking after his well-being since almost all of you would probably cause him to take his own life next," Azazel said with a severe look. "What do you mean next? What did he do in the first place?" asked Irina, now worried. "He was about to drink alcohol after smashing his hands against all the dummies in the floor and was in such a depressed state, thanks to you all. Some friends you are," Azazel said with a look of disappointment. "Please, let me see him. Let me apologize," Asia asked while holding her hands together. "Even if I did, there's no point. He completely blacked out after I helped him to his bed. He couldn't even hear you if you screamed at the top of your lungs. It broke my heart to see him like that, and I can't let you see him. It'll hurt you, even more, Asia." Azazel looked down with sadness, then looked at Rias. "Rias, did you say you regret turning him into a devil and returning to Riser now that he's different?" Azazel asked, hoping she didn't. "I wish I didn't," Rias said while holding back her tears. Azazel was stunned. She said that to Issei's face, the man who saved her again and again, saved them all the others and themselves, gave his arm, used juggernaut drive, light spears, you name it, yet just a few sentences killed him inside. "I can't believe you," Azazel said as he fell to his knees. "Why? What could have possessed you to be so cruel to the man in love with you?" Azazel asked while holding back his tears in shock. With that, Rias began to whimper and tried her best not to cry cause of her mistake. "As if this moment, none of you are to be near or contact or follow him. Rosweiss, make sure that they stay away. I have to inform Sirzex and Grafia about this," Azazel said while standing back up and looking at Rosweiss. "No, please," shouted Rias in fear of what would happen. "Silence, you damned brat," shouted Azazel with his aura leaking out, showing how angry he was. "This will impact everything in one of the worst ways possible for him. You let him get traumatized and killed by the hands of Rainier when you could have helped, and then you go and do this. Stay away for his sake and yours, because if he snaps again, he and the rest of you will be dead. I don't even want him to sense your presence, got it?" Azazel said as he raised his voice at the end. Everyone nodded out of fear. Then Azazel teleports to the underworld, but not before placing an even more powerful barrier on the room. "Everyone go to your rooms, stay out of Issei's room," Rosweiss said, now in teacher mode. "I'm the king. I should be giving the orders around here," Rosweiss, Rias retaliated in anger. "I take orders from a real king, not the person you are right now," Rosweiss said, holding her ground while in a standoff with Rias. With that, it shut her up, and they all went to their rooms, but Gasper stayed outside the room. "You de Gasper," said Rosweiss in a calm manner. Gasper stood there for a few more seconds looking at the barrier blocking the entrance, and then he went to one of the empty rooms. Rosweiss touched the barrier and was surprised she could go through it. "So Azazel allowed me to enter. Good, least I can check up on Issei," Rosweiss said in a low voice, like talking to herself. She went through the door, and inside, she could smell the sweat. She walked over to him and was saddened at the sight. His knuckles had dried blood on them, and he was crying even in his sleep. She holds his hands and casts a healing spell to heal his hands. If only there were a spell to fix your heart, Issei. You were about to confess just as you both wanted. You don't deserve this, Roswai said with a sad look. She then left the room after healing his hands. She then headed to her room and was worried about Issei. She realized just how fragile his heart and mind were. She then managed to fall asleep but would wake up now and then to check on Issei. She would find the others one by one trying to get through the barrier and force them into their rooms. Ch1 of 9 next, Chapter 2a, n. I would like to thank everyone for the kind reviews left behind in the previous chapter. It means a lot, by the way. If anyone has suggestions for what harem Issei would have, send a DM to me, and I will look into it. This is an entirely original story with a twist. I do not own any rights to High School DxD but will use the characters and storyline. It will have a harem but wait until I find out who I was inspired by stories that I came across. Enjoy smiley face. Thinking, Talking, Inner Voice, Diedrich, Chapter 2, The Consequences. Recap. If only there were a spell to fix your heart, Issei. You were about to confess just as you both wanted. You don't deserve this, Roswai said with such a sad look. She then left the room after healing his hands. She then headed to her room and was worried about Issei. She realized just how fragile his heart and mind were. She then fell asleep but would wake up now and then to check on Issei. She would find the others one by one trying to get through the barrier and force them to their rooms. Sirzek's office. Azazel teleported into Sirzek's office and caught him on his way out. Sirzek noticed the magic presence and turned around to see Azazel's face and the aura he was released, which meant something was wrong. What's wrong, Azazel? Sirzek asked in a severe tone. Let's talk in the office, now. Azazel said with such a deep tone showing his anger, which Sirzek nodded and entered his office. So what happened? Sirzek asked again. Your sister fucked up, Azazel said, shouting at the end. What? Sirzek asked with a confused look. Issei was about to confess his feelings to her, but, in her eyes, he didn't do it right. She snapped at him, and so did everyone in the room except Rosweiss and Ravel. She immediately yelled at him and said things that made me speechless for a minute. Azazel said, explaining the situation. Such as? Sirzek asked, now intrigued by what his sister said and beginning to fear the worst. She told him that she regrets turning him into a devil, Azazel says while cutting off at the end with a sigh. What? Shouted Sirzek, now realizing the situation. That's not even the worst part, Azazel said, releasing more aura. How could it get worse? Sirzek asked but beginning to regret asking. Brace yourself, Azazel says while trying to calm himself. Oh no, Sirzek said, now holding on to the edge of his chair. The next morning as Issei woke up, he had a slight headache from all that had happened, plus the sunlight hitting the room was not helping, especially since devils feel weaker in the sunlight. As he opened his eyes slightly and looked around, he saw a note on the table. As he read it, he got up and dressed and walked out the door, and he then saw a barrier. Did Azazel do this? Issei said to himself. He looked at the barrier and placed his hand on it, and it went right through. Looks like I can come and go as I please, but who else is allowed in? Issei asked himself with a hand on his chin. He walked down to the kitchen and drank at least 2 liters of water. He then looked at the time and saw that it was past 11 a.m. I missed school, Issei sighed at the end. He decided to make himself a cup of coffee since it was a little late for breakfast. He sat at the table, contemplating his life. He stayed there for 2 hours thinking. Partner, Diedrich said. Oh hey, Diedrich, how you doing? Issei asked. I'm fine. Are you doing any better? Diedrich asked out of worry. Issei was just silent. Issei, about what she said, Diedrich said before getting cut off by Issei. No, Diedrich, I don't want to talk about it, Issei said, annoyed. But you need to partner, Diedrich said with concern. No, I don't, I'm done, Issei tried to say before starting to cry. He couldn't even finish his sentence without breaking down. The damage was more precise than before. Diedrich pulled Issei into his subconscious and hugged him, and he regretted bringing it up and tried to comfort him. Every host of Diedrich had died either in battle with the White Dragon Emperor or by using the Juggernaut drive just for fun, but this time he fears that Issei might die due to heartbreak. As time passed, Diedrich noticed and realized that Rias and the other would arrive any second. Issei, they'll be here soon. It's best to keep your distance from them, Diedrich said, advising Issei on what to do. Sniff, yeah, thanks, Diedrich. You've been a great help, Issei said while sniffing after crying. He then leaves the sacred gear and wakes up back in the real world. He just wishes that he didn't. He went to his room and locked the door. He could have gone back to the barricaded room, but his room was comfortable. Every other room is just so empty and feels foreign. He just stood there and looked around. The smell of their perfumes lingered. It made his heart ache. He started to clean to distract himself. He got fresh sheets. He couldn't stand the smell of their scent. He opened the window and used air freshener. He was cleaning anything he could and found his porn stash. He looked at it and decided to get rid of it, all of it. He packed the magazines and movies in separate bags, took down the posters and figurines from site, packed it all, and put ads for them online. Within minutes he got bids and sold them to the highest bidder. He made an excellent 750,000 yen. After it was all said and done, he heard his doorknob turn. He looked at the door and could feel their presence. He pushed a chair against the door and barricaded it. He then heard someone knock on his door. Hey Issei, you in there? Kaneko asked. Issei didn't respond to her. Issei, please talk to us, Asia said. Big brother, we're sorry for what we said, Gasper said with a sad voice. Yet again, no answer. He just sat there. Guys, you heard Azazel. Leave Issei alone. You've heard him too much already, Roswai said with a concerned tone. Issei was glad that already someone was looking out for him. They all left, but Roswai stayed. You okay there, Issei? Roswai asked, still worried about him. Yeah, thanks. Another few seconds, and I might have said something to them that I would regret later, Issei said as he leaned against the wall. Roswai smiled. At least he talks to me, she thought. Any time. Are you hungry? She asked. No, but thanks. I already ate, Issei said as a white lie to make her not worry about him. Alright, I'll be in the room next to yours. If you want to talk, then let me know, Roswai said, hoping he would talk to her so she could comfort him. Sure, thanks, sensei, Issei said as he wanted to tell her name but couldn't. She left and entered the adjacent room. Issei grabbed the bags and flew out of the window. He met up with the buyers and sold his stuff. He got paid, and he stashed the cash in a safe spot, but then again, that cash is chump change compared to the money he made from the grabbing dragon show. As night fell upon the Hyodo household, a red teleportation circle appeared in front of Issei in his room. From it jumped out Searsex and Graphia, who decided to give him a death hug, squeezing him tightly. Searsex? Lady Graphia? Asked Issei, confused what's happening. Sniff, Issei, I'm so sorry, Graphia said while tears went down her cheeks. We both are, Searsex said, adding to what Graphia said. Issei was perplexed. He's never seen Graphia without a stoic expression other than a slight smirk that would appear when she's proud of her friends and family. Right now, he sees not just her with an unmistakable sad expression, but Searsex has the same sad look. Issei was stunned and silent. What are you two apologizing for? He asked as they let go of him. You know very well why. It's because of her that you're in this situation. As her elder, I apologize on her behalf, Searsex said in a sad tone. It's not your fault, so why apologize? Again Issei asked, now confused. It's because we asked you to save her months ago. We asked you to risk your life, and it's because of us that you're hurting Issei, Graphia said, still with tears going down her cheeks. Hey, that wouldn't have made a difference. I would have saved her either way and fought Riser, Issei said as both Searsex and Graphia looked into his eyes and saw how devoid of any life or emotion, just a cold and empty gaze. Issei, what did she do to you? Asked Searsex now with a worried look. Let me die. Let Asia die, and ripped my heart into pieces just because I didn't say I love you the right way apparently, and said she regrets turning me into her pawn and that Riser is now a worthy candidate for her love, Issei said nonchalantly with no emotion. Both Searsex and Graphia gasped, and their eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. She didn't, said Graphia while still in shock. Ask Rosweiss and Rabble. They saw and heard the whole thing, Issei said. Issei, please tell me how we can make it up to you. Anything at all, Searsex says, hoping he can fix this mess. Anything? Issei asked while tilting his head. Just name it, Graphia said in hope. Then, please make me a free devil, Issei asked after considering his options. which left them stunned by his request. "I'm guessing you're surprised by my request. Well, I can't blame you. You know what? Let's just forget about it," Issei said, looking down at his feet. "Issei, you're making us worry about you," Graphius said, hoping to help him. "Sorry, I don't mean to," Issei said, still looking down to the floor. "We know, Issei, you need to talk to us about it," Sirzex said, hoping he could shed more light on what's happening. "Azazel told you everything, right?" "As did I don't know what else to talk about," Issei said while gripping his wrists. "We can talk about how you feel," Graphius said. Hee. "How do I feel?" "I feel numb, and I feel apathy," Issei said. "You've pushed your emotions deep down. Don't bottle them up," Graphius says with a worried look. "I didn't, and I just went numb," Issei explained. As Issei said that, Sirzex noticed that the dirty posters were gone, and his magazine and dirty movies on his shelves were gone too. "Issei, did you do some cleaning?" Sirzex asked while trying to work out where it had gone. "Oh, that. Many collectors wanted all that stuff, so I sold it. I think it's time that I outgrew my lust," Issei says with no emotion. This made both of them shocked once again. "Issei, this isn't you," Graphius says, now knowing how bad this looks. "The old me should never have been who I was before. The old me was a damn fool forever loving them," Issei says with a hint of anger in his tone. "Issei," was all that Sirzex could say. "Because of that, I'm done loving your sister or her peerage. I only trust Rosweiss, Ravel, you two, and Azazel. You're the only ones who care, and that's why I'll continue to help you when you need me. Oh, wait. There's also Sarorg and Saji. I can't believe I forgot to mention them as well. We're happy that you don't hate us," Sirzex says with a little bit of a smile. "I have no reason to hate you about the grabbing dragon show. Can you use a stunt double when my character has to interact with Rias? I know I sound like a diva, but as you already know, our chemistry isn't the same as it used to be. If she and I came face to face, then I might say something I'll regret, or not," Issei says as he explains. "You're still angry at her, aren't you?" Sirzex asked out of concern. Livid, Issei says nonchalantly. "Issei, I beg you for your forgiveness," pleaded Sirzex. "You shouldn't apologize for her actions or theirs. I'm done caring for them except for Rosweiss and Ravel," said Issei. "What about Irina and Asia?" asked Graphia out of curiosity. "Some friends they are. Too late for apologies now. I don't care if they tried to make things right. There's no way to undo the damage, and I used my spell to figure out what I did wrong. Issei, would you please try to look past it? I'll make you a free devil if you want." Sirzex pleaded yet again. "Let me ask you, if you were in my position, told by the one you're in love with that they wish they never met you, that they let you die when they could have done something to save you or even warn you, they would rather see you dead and replaced by the one you risked your life to fight to save her from a forced marriage with. Would you ever be able to move on from that? Love or even care for them in the slightest after seeing all you endured going down the drain?" Issei says, questioning them and finally showing his emotions and seeing it was painful as he cried like that. "Issei, I'll personally make you a free devil because you're right. If you're around Rias when you harbor such feelings after what she said and still choosing to fight by our side, this is the least I can do for you," Sirzex says, finding the harsh reality Issei's in. "Please do. I don't want to run away and be marked as a stray. I don't want to die and hurt you guys or my parents like that," Issei pleaded while tears went down his face. "You're still thinking about others even when you're in pain. You're still the same Issei we know. Please bring that to the surface." "I'll try only because you asked me to as I see you as an older sister," Issei said while in the embrace of Graphia. "Are you ready to become a free devil?" Sirzex asked as he prepared to do the magic circle. "Yes," Issei said as he came out of Graphia's embrace and walked toward Sirzex. With that, Sirzex creates the magic circle below Issei, emitting a bright red light. Outside Issei's room, Rias saw the red light coming from underneath the door. "What the? Issei?" Rias talks to herself as she presses her ear against the door to eavesdrop on the conversation. "Issei Hyodo, you can be free if you don't cause conflict. During times of crisis, if ordered to help by the Devil Kings, you must obey. These are the two fundamental rules. Use your freedom wisely, and you're also allowed to use promotions. You are now a free devil." Sirzex says that as he finishes the chant, the glow starts to go down. Rias couldn't believe her ears. Issei was no longer her pawn, and her brother did that. No, screamed Rias as she burst through the door with enough force to break it down. But what she saw right before her was Circex emitting a blood-red aura and Graphia radiating a white freezing aura. Rias Gremory, step outside now, Circex shouted at the end. Both Circex and Graphia's auras alerted everyone to come over, and as they did, they were greeted by the fearsome sight. Glad all of you could join us. We've got a bone to pick with you, Graphia said with a harsh and scary tone, which caused everyone to pale and shake except for Rosweiss. As of this moment onwards, Issei is a free devil, Circex says in a commanding tone. As everyone gasped, Rias decided to outburst against it. But he's my pawn, and I need him, Rias shouted with anger. Silence, shouted Circex in such a command, emitting a strong aura that caused Rias to flinch at his outburst like the same as Azazel had. Rias Gremory, we know what you did. What you all did. All but one of you are now ordered to stay away from Issei. Graphia says with anger. Even me? Questioned Irina, damn, straight. I'm disappointed in all of you, and I'm starting to think that Rosweiss should be promoted to a king as none of you are as you should be. Kiba, Zenobia, Kaneko, Akano, Asia, Gasper, Irina, and Rias, I'm deeply disappointed, angry, and hurt by your actions. We treat each other like family, so tell me why this happened. Why did you all say such things? Circex asks them. They said nothing and just stood there trembling. This is the side of him and Graphia that they rarely see, but when they do, they need a miracle to survive, but as luck would have it, a miracle happened. Guys, please stop. Ripping them a new one would be satisfying but not worth it, Issei says to defuse the matter, which causes Circex and Graphia to look at him in surprise. Are you defending them? Circex asked, confused but shocked. Not in the least. I'm just sick of the drama, and I don't need to be reminded of what happened at the Orc. Very well. We'll see you tomorrow, Issei. Circex says as both he and Graphia teleported back to the underworld. After that, Gasper spoke up. Big brother? Gasper tried to ask something. Not you, big brother, anymore. You made that very clear, Issei said harshly, hurting Gasper deeply. Bro. No need to take your anger out on him, Kiba says, trying to calm Issei down. Shut up, Kiba. Do you want to be on the receiving end instead? Issei says as he shoots a killing intent aura at him. Everyone sees this is no longer the Issei they knew. Everyone just leaves. I have a door to fix, Issei says in a non-caring manner. Asia looks at him and then notices a porn-free room. Issei. Did we hurt you to the point where you are showing this much hatred? Asia asks worrying. Obvious much. Issei replied. Sakasali Kaneko then notices that the room no longer has any porn on display like it usually does. Your room, it's Kaneko trying to say something. Yeah, I got rid of the porn, made good money. Happy now? Again Issei replied nonchalantly. Issei, we're sorry. Please forgive us. Rias pleads to Issei. With that, Issei threw a drinking glass at the wall with enough force to shatter the glass and create a few cracks in the wall. Shouldn't you be out seeing Riser or something? You said that he's better than, so why are you here? Issei sharply questions Rias in anger. That was cold-hearted, Issei, Rias says, now shocked at his words. Are you surprised that I am? Let me enjoy my freedom, and I feel like a chained collar was removed and can move around, Issei says while stretching his arms, which leaves Rias speechless. Can we at least? Asia was speaking and stepping forward before getting cut off. Freeze, shouted Issei, which caused Asia to back away. There are shards of glass on the floor, be careful. Oh right, thanks, Asia says, seeing he still cares a little bit. Just be careful, everyone leave, please. I need to clean up, Issei says as he calms down. But big brother, we need to talk to you, Gasper pleaded to Issei. I'm not your brother, shouted Issei, getting annoyed, which caused Gasper to hide behind Zenobia. Not anymore, you made that very clear, all of you did save for Rosweiss and Revel. I have training after school. Wait, you're going to fight with us? Zenobia questioned while tilting her head. Only to fulfill my promise to Serord, you can get new pawns now, Rias. Your mistake is now a free devil. Look for pawns that can help after the raiding game, Issei said nonchalantly. You finally said my name, Rias said while holding her hand to her mouth with tears going down her face. That action causes Rosweiss to facepalm and Issei's eye to start twitching. Right now, I want to say so much more, and it's not what you want to hear. I need to rest after this. You guys have completely drained me, Issei said while sighing. Alright, guys, enough, we have classes tomorrow, so bed now, Rosweiss says in her teacher mode. I swear she's more like a mother day by day, Issei thought while he began to clean his room after everyone left. He then calls a carpenter to fix the door tomorrow evening. He went to the kitchen and made something to eat as he had to keep his strength up to train and get ready for the fight. He then lay in bed and listened to some music for a while to calm himself. As he listened to some calming music, he finally fell asleep. During the night, Akano came in since there was no door and just sat on the floor while leaning on his bedside. She looked at his face and saw that he had been crying himself to sleep. She could hear the songs being played due to the dead silence of the night and started to cry herself to sleep on the cold floor. The next morning as Issei woke up earlier than usual and got out of bed, he noticed Akano sleeping on the cold, uncomfortable floor. He sighed, then gently picked her up and placed her on his bed. He got ready for school, went downstairs to the kitchen, and made coffee. As he sat there savoring every bitter drop, taking in the rich aroma, it was interrupted by Asia walking in. "Oh, good morning Issei," Asia said, hoping for a response. "Morning," Issei said with no emotion. "I'm about to make some French toast. Do you want some?" Asia asked. "No thanks," Issei said as he did not even make eye contact. He then finishes his coffee and washes the mug, puts it in its rightful place, grabs his bag, and goes out the door. As he walked to school, Diedrich spoke up. "Never thought you would say no to her French toast partner," Diedrich said in surprise. "I'm not hungry," Issei said, still lacking emotion to it. "Congratulations on being a free devil," Diedrich said to try and cheer his partner up. "Thanks, it feels good," Issei replied with a little bit of a smile. "I'm proud of you, Issei. You controlled your anger last night and still plan to uphold your promise to Serorg. But what about them during the match?" Diedrich says with a question at the end. "I'll protect them physically during the match, but they should learn to defend themselves. They should have figured that out since they know I won't willingly do it anymore," Issei says nonchalantly. "I think the rating game is the least of their concern. I could tell that they all regret being so cruel," Diedrich says. "Too late for regrets, so the match begins soon. We need to train. Do you think the Rook promotion armor would do the job?" Issei asks while thinking. "Possibly if we tried hard enough, or if you ask Azazel or Sirzex for a place to train, we could do a lot more," Diedrich says while thinking of possibilities. "I'll request a leave of absence from Sona, then we'll train day and night if we have to, and this time no power-up from some stupid pair of tits," Issei says with determination. Diedrich was speechless. "Diedrich, what's wrong? Is Valley here or something?" Issei asks with concern and looks around. "Who are you, and what have you done with my partner?" Diedrich shouts in a shocking manner. "The fuck Diedrich? What's gotten into you?" Issei asks while holding his head from the shouting. You just called the Gremory girl's tits stupid. The Issei I know would never call breasts stupid. Who are you? Am I in a genjutsu?" Diedrich says, still in shock from Issei's response. You see him pacing around in circles within the gear, making Issei's eye twitch. "Diedrich, this is the new me. I sold all my porn and made good cash, and made a huge profit. Maybe I should become a businessman. My lust got me in this mess. So yeah, I'm done with tits, porn, and things of the like. I just feel empty inside," Issei said while explaining himself. "This feels so unnatural," Diedrich said with wide eyes. "I would agree if I felt anything right now," Issei said while pondering. With that, Issei reached the school before Rias or the others. He encountered the two pervs reading a magazine. He completely ignored them and went to class, and the two pervs didn't even notice him walk right by. Some of the other students saw that he came early and alone. They started asking questions about why the girls weren't with him. Murayama and Katase ran up to him. "Hey Hyodo, where are Rias and the others?" Katase asked out of curiosity. "Don't know, don't care, now move. I got to get to class, and I don't want to deal with the bullshit first thing in the morning," Issei said with no emotion when he spoke, which scared both of them when they saw his eyes depleted of life. "What did you do to them?" Murayama asked worriedly. "Nothing and a piece of advice. Stay out of it. Now get out of my way," Issei said as he raised his voice at the end. Both girls saw his eye flash green for a split second. They stood aside and watched him walk to class. "Was that Hyodo?" Murayama asked, really worried. "That look in his eye, were they even human?" "I'm scared," Kate said, also worried. Both girls started telling all the girls that Hyodo wasn't acting like the perv he usually does. The orc wasn't with him when he arrived and didn't look at any girls other than straight into their eyes with a gaze that scared them. After a while, Rias and the other came. They were looking for Issei. They went to the clubroom and didn't find him. They checked the roof and cafeteria. Not even in the usual peeping spots or girls' locker room, but instead, he was reading a book in class. Once they found him and tried to approach him, the bell rang, and the teacher entered. The teacher was Rosweiss herself and told them to take their seats in their classes. Asia, Irina, Zenobia, and Issei had the same class, and the whole time they kept their eyes locked on him. Everyone noticed their actions and how Issei straight up ignored them. He'd either look at the board, his books, or out of the window. Asia and Zenobia tried to talk to him during the break, but he ignored them each time. He ignored everyone, including the pervs, for as long as he could until they asked him to peep on the girls for the 10th time and asked if he could convince them to let them grope their bodies. He snapped. "You sons of bitches. I don't care about looking at girls' bodies anymore. Forget ass, tits, or whatever you're both into. I'm done with girls, love, or anything related to both. Peep on them and get kendo swords up your asses. If you want to feel a woman's touch, go ahead and do it, but I won't visit you assholes in jail," Issei says as he shouts at the end with anger. His yelling was heard by every guy and girl nearby. The two pervs fainted, some gasped, some choked on their spit, or some just looked at him with wide eyes, especially the girls. A perverted girl in Issei's class, Aika couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Hey Issei, did I hear you correctly?" asked Aika, shocked at what she heard. "I just said loud and clear enough for half the school to hear. Clear the dry cum out of your ears. You're going deaf," Issei said nonchalantly. This left Aika dumbfounded. Some of the students around them tried their absolute hardest to control their laughter. The ones who couldn't hold it in ran far and burst out laughing. "Damn, Issei, that hurt," Aika said while looking down. Issei took a deep breath to calm himself. "Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't been myself. I'll say, you've never been so savage. What the hell happened to you?" Aika said while worried about Issei. "Oh, just getting my feelings manipulated and getting my heart ripped to pieces by whom I fell in love with and others for whom I gave my life," Issei said as going into his world. "Wait, what?" Aika asked confused. "Forget it. It'll only raise more questions. FYI in case Rias asks anyone here to join her club, don't. You'll regret it big time cause I fucking do," Issei said while ranting. "Just what did they do?" Aika asked, even more concerned now. "Pray that you never find out," Issei said as he sighed. Previous ch2 of 9 next, Chapter 3a, n. I would like to thank everyone for the kind reviews left behind in the previous chapter. It means a lot, by the way. If anyone has suggestions for what harem Issei would have, send a DM to me, and I will look into it. This is an original story with a twist. I do not own any rights to High School DxD but will use the characters and storyline. It will have a harem but wait until I discover whose stories inspired me. Enjoy smiley face. Thinking, Talking, Inner Voice, Diedrich, Chapter 3. It's all about the choices. As Issei was apologizing to Aika, both Murayama and Katase approached him to ask him a question. No, do you not care about these two pervs?" asked Katase while tilting her head. "Did you stop being a perv yourself?" asked Murayama, also tilting her head, trying to work it out. "No way, these two were friends. They always used to leave me behind to take a beating in their stead a fair few times. Fuck being a perv. I'm done with it, and ladies have fun beating them up. If you ever need help, let me know, and by the way, I sold all my pervy stuff and now planning what to invest in, might consider doing clay art of different things, just need to find some inspiration," said Issei as he explained to both Murayama and Katase. After Issei said that, he heard everyone whispering, but he didn't care. He just wanted to leave to chill out somewhere in peace. "Again, I want to say I'm sorry for that comment I made, Aika, and I also want to say sorry to you, Murayama, and Kataise for what I did in the past. I would like to make it up to you all if possible, Issei said while bowing his head down to them. While all three girls were looking at each other, they thought of something. How about lunch together? Then maybe we can hang out somewhere else, Aika said while both other girls nodded their heads in agreement. Okay, how about tomorrow? Asked Issei in the hope they agree. Deal, all three girls said with smiles on their faces. With that, he left to get a drink and look for Azazel to ask about some items that could increase the weight that he could use for training after finding him, and Azazel agreed with him with his usual smirk, handing him some that to the job. After his discussion, he found Rosweiss to get permission to leave school. After that, he left and decided to take a different route from what he usually goes. He found himself in a unique marketplace that had all sorts, from knife collections to other various items. This is where he got hold of some clay and art tools to be able to craft with, and found some books about myths or legends that he had to buy. After that, he went home and called a carpenter to fix his door. The carpenter showed up with a new door and set it, which Issei paid the man from the cash he made from selling his porn collection. Hee hee, if someone finds these boxes under the bed thinking they're porn, they will be in for a shock, giggled Issei thinking about shock faces. Right time to do some training and test these weights that Azazel gave me. What do you think, Diedrich? Yeah, I'm sure they will help lots, not only in strength but stamina as well. Even agility if done correctly, as Diedrich explains his agreement. Issei made his way down to the basement to start his training, but the weights on his limbs began working out in his base form, which would make his balance breaker and the promotion stronger. With the help of a gadget from Azazel, he could do months of training a day and night. With that, he gained some muscle and learned to be able to fly with his devil wings but preferred his dragon's wings from the balance breaker. Eventually, the others came down and tried to join them but paid no heed. Still, Kiba had enough and stood before him with his sword drawn. Issei noticed and looked at Kiba and saw in his eyes that he wouldn't back down, so he summoned Ascalon and promoted to knight and got into position. Ready? Asked Kiba with himself in a stance. Shut up and fight, Issei said, looking at Kiba for an advantage point. With that, Issei charged at Kiba at speeds that surprised him. He barely dodged Issei's attacks and sees the tip of Ascalon swing just a few centimeters from his eyes and continues to attack him while aiming for his vital spots. He isn't training, and he's trying to kill me, thought Kiba as he concentrated on blocking. All Kiba could do was dodge and block his attacks. He couldn't even find an opening to counter-strike Issei as he wasn't giving him an opening. His speed and the force of the strikes increased considerably. Kiba was trying hard to maneuver himself, seeing multiple after images of the blade come towards him. He couldn't tell which one was real and lost his balance during the confusion. As he fell, he could only see Issei with his fist cocked back and saw it coming in fast. Kiba put his sword up to defend and hopefully block the attack, but when Issei punched it, the force sent Kiba backward and stumble on the floor. His sword flew out of his hands, pierced the ground right next to his head, and broke in half 3 seconds later. Were you even trying? Questioned Issei while tilting his head to the side. Just how did you get so fast and strong so quickly? Asked Kiba while looking up at Issei. Tisk, as Issei clicked his tongue. He then took off his shirt and removed the weights from his limbs and torso, and dropped them on the ground, making it crack on all 4 impact spots. That's how, old school, said Issei while stretching his muscles. Hold on, and you were that fast and strong because of those weights? Asked Zenobia while having floating question marks above her head. I was slow and weak because of those weights. Imagine if I didn't wear those, said Issei knowing having a drink of water. Shit, Kiba said while having wide eyes. With a cherry on top, if I also boosted my power, Issei said while grinning. When he said that, they looked at him and saw his body. Lifting those weights and using them to increase his strength and speed yielded incredible results. Kaneko saw it and blushed, seeing his body toned up in the right places and showing his six-pack. Wow, Issei, you look hot, Ria said while blushing at the sight she saw. Issei just puts his shirt back on, much to the ladies' dismay in the room, including Rosweiss and Ravel, as they were just in awe. Well, I'm done for the day, so I'm going to take a shower, said Issei as he walked out. Do you want us to join you? Says Akano while she teases. Go bath in your bathrooms, said Issei as he walked out. With that, Rias fell to her knees. "You okay, Rias?" asked Irina out of worry. "No, not in the least. I've hurt him so much because I didn't let him finish," Rias said as she started to cry. "Do you still not get it, Rias? You told him right to his face that you regret turning him. Should have let Rainier kill him again, and then struck the final nail in the coffin when you told him that your ex-fiancé who was self-centered arrogant fried chicken by the way is better than him. Issei is the one person who saved you from an abusive marriage. Gave his arm for that, fought stray priests, took light spears and used the juggernaut drive for Asia and reduced his lifespan to at least 100 years if he's lucky compared to the usual 10,000 years of a devil. He also saved Kiba from getting consumed by revenge. Gave Zenobia a broader outlook on life and made her more acceptable to those around her regardless of their race. Averted war by fighting Kokabiel who was a Kadri-level fallen whom none of you stood a chance against, stopped Valley from killing you all right after the peace meeting, nearly died by fighting Fenrir and Loki. He literally used his body as a shield for you. If it wasn't for the phoenix tear that Ravel gave him then he would be dead also out of all of us who was worthy of wielding Mjolnir," said Rosweiss as she exploded, listing all that Issei had done. This left the whole group quiet as they knew she was right. Only he was worthy. He accepted Akeno as a fallen and helped her accept herself, helped Gasper become braver, and live to fight for you and others he cares for. He helped Kaneko with her Nekosho heritage and taught both her and Asia to swim. They gave Asia a home, no less, and loving parents who treat you like family, including me. Hell, just being around him made me feel confident. He achieved a balance breaker to protect you and Kaneko, Irina. How could an angel like yourself not see the unbelievably kind and beautiful soul he is? Did the fact of him being a devil completely overshadow something so obvious? Just note that he never chose this lift or to have a sacred gear that painted a target on his back. He accepted it because he didn't have a choice and made the best of it for himself and others too. He saw and loved you all for who you were, so tell me, why couldn't you all love him as he was? Asked Rosweiss again, looking at them. Again no one could reply as they were too busy crying their eyes out, realizing their mistakes. The old Issei is still in there somewhere, and he did stop Sirzex and Grafia from ripping you all a new one, but don't think that any of you can help him, says Rosweiss as a bit of a warning. What does that mean? We hurt him, so it's only right that we fix it, said Asia, hoping some way she can mend it. Put yourself in his place. How would you all feel if someone in love put you through what he experienced and heard what you told him? Explained Rosweiss. He's in love, with us still, said Rias, thinking about small detail again, which causes Rosweiss to facepalm and then snap at her. Are you serious right now? And I thought he was dense, but I was wrong. He is just cautious while all you girls are dense as a black hole with an IQ as negative as the temperature of the coldest ice spell. I swear to Odin that if you only waited for him to finish his confession, then none of this would be happening. Shouted, Rosweiss finally said what she was feeling. She tried to be calm and rational, but it wasn't enough. She started to cry after listing everything Issei did for everyone without asking for anything in return other than maybe a little love and support, which should honestly be a given for his efforts and sacrifices. With that, she left to look for Issei with Ravel in tow, and everyone else just collapsed into tears. Once Rosweiss and Ravel exit the training area, they close the door behind them, wipe their tears, and see Issei standing there. I thought you said you would take a bath? Asked Rosweiss, shocked but wondering if he heard what she said. I was, but I needed a minute to calm myself as I nearly took Kiba's head off, Issei said as he calmed himself and looked at the two girls. What's wrong? Asked Ravel with concern while Rosweiss nodded with agreement. A lot, said Issei while a sigh at the end. Yeah, Rosweiss spoke. Hey, by the way, thanks, said Issei while looking at Rosweiss. For what? Asked Rosweiss while tilting her head. For everything. I owe you and Ravel big time for supporting me through this time, and you told them what I was feeling, Issei said with a warm, inviting smile. I just wanted to remind them. You would have felt guilty for having to remind them yourself, cause if you did, then it would like you did all that just so that they would owe you, am I correct? Explained Rosweiss doing her teacher mode. You're the same age as us yet a lot wiser than everyone around you. I respect you so much, said Issei while smiling. Why thank you, Rosweiss replied while blushing. I'm going to grab something to drink. Wanna join me, you two? Asked Issei. Sure, I'm in. I could do with one UFUFU, Roswise said while giggling at the end. I would love to, but I got to go see my mother about something important, so that I will see you tomorrow, Issei, said Ravel as she hugged Issei goodbye. Okay, no worries, Ravel, say hi to her for me, Issei said as he smiled and waved her off as she disappeared through the magic circle. As Issei and Roswise head to the roof and enjoy some drinks together under the moonlight, he lit a small bonfire and enjoyed the relaxing atmosphere as it was so calm and peaceful, unlike what happened in the training area moments ago. He admired Roswise with her hair shimming in the moonlight, and he noticed Azazel approaching with his 12 wings out as he flapped down to land. Ah, having a drink without me? Azazel says as he does a fake pout. Haha, the party doesn't start until you walk in, Issei said as he laughed with Roswise. Issei then opened a bottle of sake and poured it into Azazel and Roswise's glasses as he made himself a non-alcoholic drink. Thanks, kiddo. You both look a bit better than before, Azazel says as he smiles at what he sees. You should have seen it. Roswise went full teacher mode and ripped them a new one. Her response was savage, Issei says as he smiles and shoulder nudges Roswise, causing her to blush. Oh? Like what? Questioned Azazel while sipping on his drink. Like how they are dense as black holes with IQ as negative as the coldest ice spell, Issei replied with a smirk that made Roswise's cheeks redder than Issei's armor. He heard Azazel spit his drink at the fire, igniting it with the alcohol and turning the flames blue. Ha 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 ha, cough cough, ha ha cough, Azazel just burst out laughing, making him cough at the same time. Guys, come on, it's not that funny, PFT, ha ha ha, Roswise replied, then erupted into laughter. Ha ha ha. I know they deserve it, but I still feel bad that they are in such a state right now, Issei says as he calms down from his laughter. You're conflicted, aren't you? Asked Azazel while he looked at Issei. Understatement of the year. As much as I hate them for what they did and say to me, a part of me still cares, Issei explained as he took another sip of his drink. How come? I thought that you completely stopped loving them, asked Roswise, wondering if he loves her as well. It's complicated. I've seen them at their worst and best, how Rias comforted me when I was worried, her kindness, consideration, love, and kiss. I had a crush on her, and I fell in love with her. The day I finally beat Riser and got her out of the marriage, she and I rode on the back of a griffin, which was awesome. It was also the first time she kissed me. I unlocked my balance breaker with her help, just wish I did it a better way, Issei explains while he blushed at the end. Well, to be honest, I did tell you to do that, sorry, Azazel said as he rubbed the back of his head, which made Roswise punch him in the arm for suggesting such a thing. It's fine. After the recent show, Ria's mother showed up and asked me to protect her not as a pawn but as her lover. She and her husband already consider me their son, and Sirzex and Graphia see me as their future brother-in-law. But after what happened, I don't want to hurt them like that, and I still remember when I made that clay sculpture of Rias, explained Issei as he looked at the stars. But there's more, isn't there? Asked Roswise as Issei returned to look at them again. Too much, honestly. I helped Akano accept herself, and I accepted her in a heartbeat, the way she would help me when I needed it, like with classes, magic etc. Her pot roast is the best, and I remember our first date and how Rias, Zenobia, Asia, Gasper, and Kaneko followed us. We managed to get away and accidentally made it to the Love Hotel zone where we encountered her father and Odin, Issei said while enjoying the old times. I remember him ditching me and going to a strip club, that stupid old fart, Roswise says as she pouts. Ha ha ha, Azazel just burst out laughing at that comment. Hee hee, so Odin left after we talked, then Akano and Barakiel got into an argument, and after she told him that she didn't want to see him, he left, and she was distraught. So much so that she tried to force herself on me as a distraction, Issei says as he giggled at the beginning. But you didn't do it, right? Azazel questioned. Of course not. I won't take advantage of her like that. A few days ago, I woke up one morning and found her sleeping on the floor in my room, so I picked her up and put her on my bed, Issei said with pride. Speaking of not taking advantage, just who was that guy you beat up? You know, the one who took Asia, I think? Roswise asked. It was a dick called Diodora Astaroth, a complete asshole that targeted holy nuns like Asia, tricks the churches into excommunicating them, then took them as his playthings. Just thinking about how he took Asia made my blood boil, Issei explained. Then Shalba showed up, didn't he? Questioned Azazel. Yeah. Just when all of us saved Asia, Shalba sent her into the dimensional gap. I thought she was dead, and in my unstable state, I entered the Juggernaut drive, it was incomplete, and I lost my life force as you both already know, Issei explained taking another sip of his drink. I heard that Valley had to use his Juggernaut drive to reduce your power to help bring you back, Roswise said. It was also him, Bhikkhu, and Arthur who just happened to be in the dimensional gap. They saved Asia, and after Valley divided my power, Rias called out to me. I could hear her voice, bringing me back to reality, Issei says while he looks at the fire. What was it like to use Juggernaut drive, by the way? Asked Azazel in his investigation mode. I don't remember it because I only saw Rainier appear, again and again, whispering in my ear, making me feel exactly like I did the time Asia died after she removed her sacred gear. I constantly telling me that I failed to protect her and she was right. I thought Asia was dead for real this time. Rainier was the first girl I fell for, but she killed me after our first date, hee hee. I can't believe I fell for her on our first date, fuck, Issei says while looking down. I'm glad she's dead. She sealed her fate after going against my orders, Azazel says as he pats Issei's back. Is she the one that Rias knew about? Asked Roswise while looking at Issei with sadness. I was honestly scared of women, but I got over it, and I opened my heart to all the other girls in my former team, Issei said as he explained his feeling. Because you wanted a harem? Asked Azazel with a smirk. Ha ha ha. Something like that. The reason I let them all in is that I thought they all loved me, and who am I to break their hearts? All I ever wanted in life was love and support, and the harem thing was just a cover-up. I would be labeled a wimp and a pussy for saying I want love when you guys around my age usually want sex, but I was always different. Fuck being the harem king, such a stupid goal. Issei says while looking at the floor again. What is happening? Diedrich thought. Azazel and Roswise had their eyes widened at the comment Issei said. The day we all started living together, my parents were proud of me for once. They always wanted a daughter or two, so imagine their surprise when all the orc girls came into their lives. For once, I had friends. Correction, a family that I could trust entirely but after being chewed out for something that wasn't even my fault. What do you mean? Asked Roswise. I was just a pervert my whole life up to this point. Maybe this is karma for the things I've done. I wasn't exactly a saint, ha ha ha, Issei says as he laughs at the end. You've done so many amazing things and saved many lives. Karma has no power here and what they did was their mistake, not yours, Azazel explains to Issei as he comforts him. They should also have known that confessing one's feelings takes time. It can't be rushed, Roswise says in her teacher mode as she sat up straight when she said it. I was ready to confess my feelings to her. She helped me become more assertive. They helped save Asia and gave her a new life. I couldn't believe it when she said she loved me and wanted us to be together forever. But? Asked Roswise. After what happened at the clubroom, I could tell from the look in their eyes that they hated me as if I was trash, and it only gets worse, Issei explains. How is that possible? Asked Azazel, wondering how worse it could get. It's possible because I'm still in love with them. They saw me as their future husband, and I couldn't reject such love and live with myself by breaking their hearts. I don't know if I overreacted in the clubroom or jumped at the chance when Sirzex offered me to become a free devil. What will Sarorg think of us? What will everyone think when they eventually find out why I'm no longer her pawn? How much will this hurt not just her reputation but the entire Gremory household? I feel like a coward for not confessing sooner and properly. Issei says what's on his mind. Both Azazel and Roswise were speechless. Tell me, who else was a part of Rias's plan to add Asia and me into her peerage? Asked Issei. Both Roswise and Azazel looked at each other. Issei saw them having a look of refusal on their faces. They know, but they don't want to tell. Guys, don't hide it, you know it then. Just tell me, please, asked Issei with a pleading look. Issei, it'll only hurt more, said Azazel, hoping he didn't ask any further. It's better than not knowing who my true murderers are, shouted Issei with anger. Azazel was stunned. You have the right to know, but you should know this first. Asia tore Rias a new one, it was satisfying. Roswise says to hope to calm Issei down a bit. Hee, nice, Issei said as he giggled a bit. The other who knew about it are Akeno, Kiba, and Kaneko. They were just following her orders, but that's no excuse, Roswise says. Issei was shocked and couldn't believe it. I'm sorry, Issei. We were just as shocked as you, but I know they truly regret their actions. Azazel explains to Issei. Issei tried his best to hold back the tears as his thoughts lay bare. The betrayal was eating away at him so much. Kiba and Gasper used to see me as their brother, and they like mine, but after what I said to them about no longer being their brother, nearly taking Kiba's head off, Zenobia and Irina wanted to have a family with me, and Akeno and Rias certainly seduced me. Thus, my attachment turned into a love for them, but certainly not vice versa, it seems. My damn lewd nature, Kaneko, was starting to like me, but I didn't know how I would accept her feelings. I can't blame Asia, she and I were put on the same sinking boat, it would seem, but I'm still so angry when I know I shouldn't be. I'm conflicted about if I have the right to love them. Should I be in love with them? Being told by the first woman that I truly fell in love with willingly, saying that I should have been killed twice and that the guy she never wanted to even think about was becoming a better option, really made me question my love for them, to put it mildly. I realized that day, I was only revived because of the boosted gear, and it wasn't because she cared at first but because she needed the power to free herself. Despite knowing that I was nothing but a means to an end. I still would have helped cause I can't stand seeing people in such positions, even if I hate them. Asia was used the same way and, we're back in the same sunken boat, but, she said so herself, she's happy with all of us. She didn't lie. Hee, can she even lie? I never heard her even try to. Shit. I took my anger out on her for something that wasn't her fault, and now I'm no different than Rias. I don't know what to feel. Issei says as he shouts at the end. Roswise was shedding tears while Azazel tried to keep his hands from shaking. Issei's words were giving them a clear entrance to his wounded heart, and if they were in his place, they would have either killed them or themselves. I just wanted some love like everyone else. Was I asking for too much? Maybe I was. Polygamy is a bitch. I found out the hard way that even more people can destroy you in an instant. Fuck, I'm sorry. I've been rambling since the start. Issei says as he lets it all out. Issei, do you regret falling for them? Asked Azazel in wonder. I just regret falling in love so quickly. About falling in love itself, I'm not sure in the slightest, to be honest, Issei said as he looked at Azazel. If Cupid were real, then I'd kill him, Roswise said with a bit of anger. I would ask him only one thing, though, Issei says, if he was real. What would that be? Asked Azazel. What did he aim for when he missed my heart? Asked Issei while looking down at the floor. I doubt he would have an answer to that, said Azazel. Guys, thanks. I needed this, you've always looked out for me, and I can only hope to repay the favor. I'm a free devil now, so call me when you need me. Issei says he looks at them both. Sure, kiddo, by the way, I want to know what you did with all the porn you used to have? Asked Azazel out of curiosity. I sold it to collectors, and I used the cash to get some modeling clay to start making sculptures. Want to see some I done? Issei explained. Wait, you made some sculptures? Asked Roswise with a shocked face. Sure, let's have a look. I love to see them, Azazel said with a smile. Okay, sure, I'll go down and collect them, back in a minute, Issei says as he heads downstairs to grab them. First, previous ch3 of 9 next, chapter 4a, n. I would like to thank everyone for the kind reviews left behind in the previous chapter. It means a lot, by the way. If anyone has suggestions for what harem Issei would have, send a DM to me, and I will look into it. This is an original story with a twist. I do not own any rights to High School DxD but will use the characters and storyline. It will have a harem, but wait until I discover whose stories inspired me. Enjoy smiley face. Thinking, Talking, Inner Voice, Diedrich, Chapter 4, Never-Ending Fights. As Issei went downstairs to his room to get his clay sculptures, Roswise looked at Azazel with a smirk. I know what you did, Roswise says while grinning. Whatever do you mean? Azazel shrugs, pretending he doesn't know. I saw a one-way communication circle below Issei's chin just before he left. You made Rias and the others listen to his words, thoughts, and true feelings. Roswise says, staring daggers at Azazel. Yes, I did. You caught me. He needed to let it out, and they needed to hear it from him. I know he wouldn't tell them directly, and right now, he wasn't angry, just hurting badly. He didn't have it in him to tell them face to face, and through the one-way communication circle, they couldn't cut him off. I can't imagine Issei holding all those mixed feelings this whole time. Such emotions destabilize sacred gears, but that didn't happen. He's stronger than ever, but is it worth it? Azazel explained his decision, ending in a question. I hope this doesn't backfire, Azazel, or you probably get the full blunt, Rosweiss warns Azazel, as it's a double-edged sword effect. Well, as the saying goes, the calm before the storm, and it's only been a light rain, Azazel says and sighs. Issei finally arrived back with a tray full of his clay sculptures and showed off what he had done to Azazel and Rosweiss, who had massive saucers in their eyes when they saw what he had made. Wow, Issei, this one looks almost like realistic dragon scales, Rosweiss said with a shocked expression. What? Diedrich said, panicking. Don't worry, Diedrich, and it isn't real. I used your scales as a reference and made it into a clay sculpture of yourself, Issei said with pride. That scared me almost as badly when you said you hated breasts. My nerves can't take much more hits, Diedrich said, now relaxing after the minor panic attack. Wait. You hate tits? Who are you? Azazel shouts as he's confused. That's exactly what I said, replied Diedrich, was sharing the information with Azazel. Oh, calm down, will you too? I don't hate them, not at all. But my love for them is greatly reduced to normal levels. There's more to women than their physical assets, Issei replied nonchalantly and noticed Rosweiss blushing a bit after saying that. With that, Azazel opened a bottle of scotch, then drank it all. He then sat by the fire and stared into it lifelessly like his soul was gone. I think you broke him. Ha 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 ha, you got to do that to Odin next, Rosweiss says as she was holding her stomach while laughing at Azazel's reaction. Both Issei and Rosweiss laughed and continued looking at Issei's clay art, admiring them and enjoying their time together. Meanwhile, Rias and the others just sat there feeling conflicted as Issei. They needed to make things right and hope he would forgive them. What should we do? Asked Irina, looking at the other members of the orc. Don't know, Akeno said, looking down. Issei, I'm sorry, my love, Rias said while a lone tear went down her face. We got to make things right, and he still loves us, Asia says with hope in her voice. That's right, and he's still in love with us, Zenobia said, showing her usual denseness. He's not the dense idiot we know and love now. He's more of an angel than I am, Irina says as she spreads her wings that look gray rather than pure white. Irina, your wings, Kiba said with a worried expression which made everyone, including Irina, look at them and were surprised to see them in such a state. We have to fix this, or you'll fall, Akeno says as she comforts Irina. After how I hurt him, I'm surprised that I haven't fallen yet. Please forgive me, Issei, for I have failed you as a friend, Irina says as she holds her hands in prayer. You didn't pray to God this time, Gasper said as he looked at Irina. It's his forgiveness we need to earn, Kiba said as he now looked at the floor. Guys, let's give Issei some space, and then we can figure out how we can earn his forgiveness back, Akeno said with determination in her eyes. You heard what he just said. He still loves us all and wants us, Rias says in a delusional state of selfishness. For the love of, did you not hear everything else he said? We made him double if he's worthy of love. He saw the hate we felt when we thought he wasn't confessing. We pushed him into a corner, so let's not do it again. I feel that a part of him doesn't even want to be in love anymore, especially with any women here. I wouldn't if I were in his place, Akeno shouted, looking angry at the way Rias responded. He was traumatized by Rainier, he was afraid of women, and that's one of the reasons he didn't take advantage of us. He earned our love, and we made him think that we took it all back. He overcame his fear and opened his heart to us until that day. Let's not hurt him anymore, please, as Akeno started to sob uncontrollably. Back to Issei. After Issei, Rosweiss, and Azazel had their fun, Issei went to his room, put his collection back under his bed, and then got ready to go to sleep as he needed it. So partner, tomorrow you need to meet up with that pervert girl and them kendo girls, Diedrich said. Yeah, we are all going to have lunch and hang out a bit. I remember how my ex-friends passed out. Haha, Issei says to his faithful friend while having a bit of a laugh at the end. After how you told them that you don't like breasts, I think many more lost their grip on reality for a minute, Diedrich replied while laughing himself. Yeah, I bet it was the day's highlight for others, Issei said. To be honest, you and Aika were the biggest perverts there, no offense, Diedrich says. Meh, none has taken, but what's your point? Issei replied to Diedrich for an explanation. How to have the two of you not fucked each other's brains out? Diedrich said out of seriousness. Bruh. What the fuck, Diedrich, Issei says while facepalming himself. Sorry, I hope you do become good friends, or dare I say something more? Diedrich says with a slight smirk. Okay, what should I get for lunch moving on from that horrific conversation? Issei asks, pondering. How about doing a home-cooked meal to share with them? Diedrich replied with a smile. That's a brilliant idea, Diedrich, Issei replied with a massive grin. After the conversation with Diedrich, Issei went to sleep since he had to get up early to make the meal, but unfortunately, he didn't notice the presence of Kaneko, who partially heard his conversation with Diedrich. Issei and Aika. I'm going to be sick. Kaneko says to herself as she goes to her bathroom and pukes in the toilet. The following day Issei woke up early and made a meal for Aika, Murayama, and Katase. After his rambling with Rosweiss and Azazel, he felt much better and decided to make lunches for everyone else. He packed the ones for the three girls and went to school early. He met up with Aika, Murayama, and Katase and gave them the lunches he had prepared for them. Too bad he didn't notice the entire orc spying on him. This caught the attention of the other students, and they saw Issei talking to Aika, Murayama, and Katase, talking with a homemade meal in their hands. Yesterday's rumors were still the hot topic, and this will start a flame one way or another. During lunchtime, Issei and the three girls sat on a bench talking while the orc was spying on them from a distance but couldn't hear much due to the noise caused by the cars driving on the nearby road. As Issei and the girls, the orc could see them having their lunch together and having a good time, even sharing laughs, and how they got jealous. Then they followed us on our date wearing a tiger mask, surgical mask, a hat, sunglasses, and a paper bag. They all tried to hide behind a pole, Issei says as he explains his date with Akano. Ha 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 ha, all three girls were laughing at what he said. Then we ran for it and somehow ended up in the Love Hotel district. Issei says as he leans his head backward, and the girls start to turn red. The other girls were watching from the side, and as Issei's head couldn't be seen, followed by seeing Aika's turning red, they all jumped out and started sprinting towards them and reaching them in 4 seconds. Issei. Did you just kiss her? Rias shouted with an angry tone, making Issei and the girls jump at her, yelling. What the hell, Rias? Can't I spend some time with my friends? Issei said, wanting answers. Looked like you and Aika were becoming more than friends. We all saw you kiss her, Rias said with a half glare. Aika turned red again, Rias started to cry, and Issei got mad again. Are you all being serious right now? As his anger showed, all of us were just hanging out, Issei said. It looked like it was more than that, from our perspective, Irina says while pouting. It wasn't like that. We were just talking, Aika said, standing up for Issei while other girls nodded their heads in agreement. Oh yeah? What about? Asia asked while tilting her head. About how I can't have some alone time without all of you breathing down my neck out of jealousy. Fucking hell. Issei said, showing his frustration. Guys, come on, let's leave. We attracting too much attention, Akano says out of seriousness. At least someone here other than Rosweiss-sensei has common sense, Issei said nonchalantly. Ouch, Kaneko replied, feeling hurt. I'm sensing a lot of bad blood between you two, Aika says, looking between Rias and Issei. Oh, zip it, you're trying to get between our Issei and us, Rias says with a hint of anger in her tone. Yours? Fuck that. Issei said, now getting angrier. What? Issei, Rias says before getting cut off. Girls, I need to speak to them alone. Can we catch up later in class? Issei said as he turned to the three girls. Okay, sure, thanks for lunch, Issei. We'll see you later in class, said all three girls as they could sense how angry Issei was. All three girls left and made the other students watch from a distance left. I know that Azazel-sensei let you hear what I said last night. I noticed the communication circle he used, but despite knowing how I feel, most of you continue to jump to conclusions without even asking my side of trying to find the truth. Issei says as he starts to shout at the end. Okay, so why did you make lunch for them? as I never got along with them before? Asia asks out of curiosity. As Issei takes a deep breath, I snapped at Ika yesterday and apologized to Murayama and Katase, so I made lunch as an apology. I was feeling better after last night, so I made lunches for everyone, Issei says as he explains himself. We did it again, didn't we? Irina said as she looked down to the floor. Yeah, you all did so little. Faith next time, Issei said nonchalantly. Issei, we're sorry, Irina says but gets cut off by Issei. Save it. I don't want you hollow apologies, Issei said as he looked away from them and thought about walking off. These aren't hollow apologies. We really mean it, Rias says, trying to hold in her tears. Then why? Why continue to hurt me? Accuse me of something I didn't do. I'm just trying to do right by those around me, trying to move past everything that had happened and maybe try to love you, girls, the way I used to. But you're making it so fucking hard right now, Issei says as he raises his voice at the end. Issei, Rias tried to say before getting cut off again by Issei. I'm still so angry at you for what you said and still trying to pick up the pieces, but how can I do that when you all continue to crush my heart to dust? Issei says as his hands start to shake. I can't keep doing this, Rias. I quit the club, and I need time away from everyone. When Issei said this, Rias froze, Asia went wide-eyed, and others were quiet, trying to process what just happened. Issei, please, no, don't leave us, Akeno shouts in panic. I'm not leaving for good, and I just need a break, Issei said as he tried to calm Akeno down. Wait. If you knew that we could hear you yesterday, why not tell us directly? Kaneko asks while worried. What good would that have done? You would jump to conclusions and misinterpret everything I would say, Issei was saying before Rias interrupted. Issei, Rias was saying before Issei interrupted her this time. Enough, Rias, our relationship will be my death, and I'm pissed off. I don't want to say something that I might regret later, Issei says as he finishes explaining what he thought. But we love you, Rias says as she goes silent at the end. Then you certainly won't like what I want to say right now. I don't want to hurt you. Any of you like you hurt me. Issei said what he thought. But big brother, Gasper said before Issei cut him off. Don't call me that, Issei said as his anger increased. That night, the same restraint that Sirzex and Grafia came to visit was resurfacing. Guys, let's give him some space, Kiba said, knowing Issei would flip any minute. Issei silently nods a thank you to Kiba and walks away, leaving the other behind, which he manages to bump into Aika on the way to class. Hey, you doing okay? Aika asked, a bit worried about Issei. Yeah, I don't have Stockholm Syndrome anymore. Piece of advice: don't join her club, and they aren't what they seem, Issei says as a bit of advice in case they ask her to join. I can tell by how they hurt you out of jealousy, toxic as fuck, Aika says till they hear the bell ringing for class. Let's get to class, Issei says as he does a fake smile. Hey Issei, do you still love them? Aika asks, hoping not to step on a landmine. Unfortunately, yes, and they are making it difficult to keep it that way, even though I don't want to, Issei says while he sighs at the end. Wow, to make the Issei Hyodo, the lover of all women, to hate them so much, makes me question if they are even human, Aika says, talking out loud. If only she knew, Diedrich said in Issei's mind. If only indeed, Issei replied and sighed. As the day ended, Issei headed straight home as he had enough of Rias and the others' stupidity. On his way, Kiba intercepted him using his speed. Hey Issei, wait up, shouted Kiba. Get out of my way, Kiba. I'm done with every last one of you, Issei said with a hint of anger in his tone. Look, you're right. We jumped to conclusions when we shouldn't have, Kiba said as he tried to apologize. Too late for apologies, Issei said nonchalantly. Issei, do you hate us? Kiba asked out of worry. More and more every time you guys do shit like this. How are you all so dense? Issei replied with a question at the end, which left Kiba stunned. Start training, the fight with Sarorg is not long away. Can we train together? Kiba asked to hope to earn his forgiveness this way. Sure, I could use a target, was Issei's reply to Kiba's question, which sent a chill up Kiba's spine as his tone was as sharp as Ascalon when it was centimeters from his eyes last time. Alright, I'll tell the others first, Kiba says as he stuttered at the beginning. Issei walked away without another word as Kiba wandered back to the orc. He told everyone to stay away from Issei and train, and Issei is in a bad state. He trained the whole day, and so did everyone else but barely. After Issei told them that he wanted to be alone, he avoided them. As they were training, they all got a call from Sirzex talking about a stray that had many other teams failed to stop, and it was causing havoc in the familiar forest. Alright, let's move out and try and kill this stray, Rias said, trying to act like a king now. You coming, Issei? Irina asked as she looked at him. Yeah, sure, I could do with a live target and a new familiar. There's a full moon tonight. Issei said, sending chills up everyone's spine except for Rosweiss as she noticed he wasn't happy about something. As everyone teleported to the familiar forest and stepped out, Gasper got scared by some noises and clung to Issei. Scary, Gasper says as he hides behind Issei, and Issei is not saying anything to comfort him like he usually does. He wasn't giving anyone attention at all. Oofufufu, this brings back memories, Akeno says as she licks her lips and puts her finger on his chin. What's so memorable about this place? Rosweiss asks out of curiosity. I got my first familiar here, and it electrocuted Issei a few times when he was nearby. He is protective of me against other males, such a protective little dragon, Asia says, remembering that day. I still remember the slime that ate our clothes ufufu, Akeno said, blushing as she spoke. This caused Rias to blush from embarrassment and look at Issei. He didn't say anything, no slight change in his stoic facial expression. She thought that the old memory of the girls having their clothes eaten and leaving them primarily nude would get a reaction out of him, but none at all. Rias was about to speak, but Issei beat her to it. I'll get us a bird's eye view. Balance breaker, Issei said as he shouted his balance breaker. Welsh dragon balance breaker, Diedrich shouted through the boosted gear, and Issei flew up into the sky. Should we follow him? Asked Xenovia while tilting her head. No, he can handle himself. He told you all he needs space, fucking give it to him now, spread out in teams. Rosweiss said in teacher mode. I'm the king here, Rosweiss, Rias says with her hands on her hips. Then act like it, Rias, Rosweiss responded sharply. Excuse me? Rias responded as she was getting ticked off while Rosweiss was getting angry like before. Do you have to remind you of what happened today and yesterday? How can you give him space? Do you hear what you want to listen to cause of your ego? What? Rias said, confused, which caused everyone around her to facepalm. Yup. You're denser than a black hole. Everyone split up, Irina and Xenovia go north, Kiba and Gasper go east, Asia and I will go west while Akeno and Out King can go south, Rosweiss said as she did the quotations when she said king out of spite. Tisk fine, Rias says as she clicks he tongue. They all split up after that. As Akeno and Rias walked, Rias decided to speak up and complain. She's got quite the nerve talking to her master like that, Rias says while ranting while Akeno stays quiet. Why aren't you saying anything? I have nothing to say, Akeno responded to that question. Don't tell me you're taking her side, Rias said while still complaining. I'm done taking sides, but she's right, none of us have been exactly up to the level of maturity we should be. Look what we did to Issei by simply not letting him finish his confession. Now, he hates us. Because every time he tries his best to keep himself in one piece, what do? We made it worse, Akeno said, expressing what she thought. But he still loves us, Rias says, only getting half the picture. And we just make him regret that. So far, he hasn't broken up with you or us, but I don't blame him for needing space, Akeno says, finishing what she thought. Will we get our Issei back? Rias asks out of concern. Even if we get him back, he will never be the same, Akeno said as she sighed at the end. If only we, Rias says but goes quiet at the end. What? Akeno asks with a puzzled look. I have an idea, Rias says as she does her usual mischief grin and whispers it into Akeno's ear. Rias, it's a bad idea, Akeno said as she gasped at the beginning. Not if we do it at the right time. Let's take some time to convince the others, and when Issei calms down, we execute the plan, Rias said with determination. Well, if the old Issei is still in there somewhere, then it might, Akeno said as she pondered on that thought. Come on, and he won't be able to resist. We're going to go through with it, Rias said with fire in her eyes. I guess it's worth a shot, Akeno said, hoping it would work, but as she said that, One of Issei's dragon shots flew right past them and hit a tree husk in the distance. Both girls were shocked, and they turned around to see Issei fighting in the distance, which led Akeno to call the others to come to their location. They see Issei fighting this stray, and its potent power is strong. "Ah, it's a monster," Gasper shouted and hid behind Kiba. "What kind of stray is that?" Asia says while in shock. "Not sure, but Issei has a tough time. We need to help him," Kiba says, but then sees Issei and the stray take their fight into the air. The creature used its bladed arms to attack Issei, who used Ascalon to strike back and defend. His armor promotions weren't of much help in the air as his knight armor is thin and has little defense. His rook has the defense but is slow, while this creature has both speed and defense despite its thin body. Issei Bishop's promotion has long-range attack abilities but needs to anchor itself to fire its twin cannons, so he would be an easy target. "Issei, we're here. Let us help," Xenovia shouted up to Issei. "This thing is too dangerous to fight without armor. Stay back," Issei shouted back as he blocked the incoming attack. "Boost boost 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 boost," Diedrich echoing from his gauntlet. Issei ordered them to stay away as he and the stray exchanged slash after slash. The stray cut chunks of his armor off, but Issei also landed a few slashes, but his injuries healed remarkably fast. "You won't survive this long, partner. Why not let the others help?" asked Diedrich. "They'll be dead then, Diedrich," Issei responded to his friend. Then suddenly, the stray disappeared from his sight, only for it to reappear behind him and land a hit on his shoulder, exposing it. "Gah!" Issei shouted in pain. "Issei!" everyone shouted in panic. The stray prepared what looked like an energy attack in the form of a sphere between its horns, preparing to aim for Issei's head. This was until Issei responded to it and elbowed him right in its side and managed to cause damage to daze the stray and giving Issei to take a chance to try his new promotion. "Promotion to Queen!" Issei shouts with all his heart. "Cardinal Crimson promotion!" Diedrich shouted out of his gauntlet. Issei's armor was promoted to its new queen form. His armor was the usual red and golden with the iconic green gems, but the twin cannons were on his back. His dragon wings looked like they were made of red light with golden dragons on each wing. His armor didn't look that much different appearance-wise, but the power it was giving off was no joke. This new armor has the combinations of all three promotions of the knight, rook, and bishop. As Issei boosted a few times and fired off his twin blasters, it hit the stray directly and was sent crashing into the ground over a few kilometers away. Issei flew full speed and used the rook's ability to partially change his arm with a solid punch to finish off the stray. He saw it stand up weakly and managed to punch it directly in the face. He was sent into the distance again with crashing sound resonation into his ears. Issei then went to the stray and prepared his dragon shot to finish it off, but he saw it turn to ash and looked confused, so he managed to get a sample of the ash to send it to Sirzex to identify what was or who it was. Issei then deactivated his armor. First, previous ch4 of 9 next.